going from the trades to the corporate world has been pretty interesting for me. For those of you that don't know, for the last 22-ish years, I've been, working with my hands. Started off, in construction when I was younger, in my teens, 16 or so, and then eventually found my dream job as a welder, fabricator, building, I started off building sandrails, and then I got into what my real passion was trucks, building pre-runners and off-road desert race trucks, stuff like Baja 1000 type stuff. Anyways, after moving to Texas, that whole industry is primarily focused in Southern California. All the big shops, all the big producers of parts like, shocks and just parts in general. Hold on, I'm gonna get away from the air conditioning unit. It's awesome. Just all the big producers of parts and, the desert, everything, in Texas. It's pretty much all private land, so there's nowhere to really go off-roading for the day or dirt bike riding for the day. So you kind of either have to have property. I know there's a few spots they do some desert racing. I think further down south there's a guy that has a big piece of property and they do some racing down there, but it's just not a big scene out here. So I found myself using the skills that I learned, welding, fabricating for all those years. The first job I got out here in Texas was working for a fence company, building, fence panels and, just steel fencing. It was all in the shop stuff. I wasn't like in the field or nothing. So it was a little bit better than being in the field. But it was like soul crushing. I go from building these really high-end, expensive race cars that take a lot of precision and a lot of know-how to build, to building like these super hacky, fence panels and stuff like that. And like the quality of what was acceptable at that place was insane to me. 90% of the stuff I saw leave that shop, I would never, ever let leave my shop. And then I got a job at an off-road shop out here, but it wasn't, they didn't do a lot of custom fab. It was all Barney bolt-on crap you buy online. The primary focus was on Jeeps. Jeeps are super popular and trendy right now. Everyone's getting a Jeep and going four-wheeling and stuff. So it was a lot of, like I said, Barney bolt-on stuff, and even the fab work that we did do was just cutting off factory parts and then welding on someone else's aftermarket part. There was no designing parts or designing suspension or designing roll cages, none of that stuff. So I really found myself, and then I left that place and I went into business for myself and did some fab jobs and stuff, but mainly got into the knowledge I learned from that fence company. I was working with some home builders and stuff, doing like handrails, for like, you can see up there on my patio, like patio hand railing and stuff like that, which, there's good money in it, but it's just a lot of work for one guy to do. And it's just soul crushing. I hated it and it was making me miserable. And I was sick of working in the heat all the time. I was sick of being dirty every day. I was sick of getting metal in my eyes and cuts and burns on my hands. Like, look at these hands are just beat, from years and years of just welding, fabricating, and I was just burned out on it, I'll be honest with you. And I was lost and kind of just didn't know where to go from there, So I started this YouTube channel. I was at a pretty low point in my life, just kind of hoping that maybe during all that, I ended up becoming addicted to painkillers, and that was the whole ordeal and stuff. So I kind of was just hoping this channel would maybe help me put me in contact with some people that I could, work maybe with some, addiction centers or something like that, and get into that that line of work. But it never, I ended up just taking a job at my wife's, she works for a mortgage company. Ended up just taking a job doing like data collection type stuff on the computer. So anyway, so the whole point of this video was I want to talk about the dichotomy going from being a welder, fabricator, working in the trades my whole life to now working in this corporate world where, it's such a culture shock for a guy like me to go from there to this. And the stuff that I've noticed, like my wife, so she's been with the company for a really long time. She's been there for like 15, 16 years. And she's pretty high up there. She's a manager and, is in charge of a lot of people. First thing I noticed was how much these people take time off. And yesterday was June 19th, Juneteenth. And apparently it's a federal holiday now. I didn't know that. So my boss calls me and says, hey, so I work with a lot of banks. And so all the banks were going to be closed yesterday. So there wasn't a whole lot for me to do. So my boss calls me and tells me, hey, all the banks are closed tomorrow. We can train you up on some other stuff. Wouldn't take too long, a couple hours. You can just kind of sit there and stare at your computer for 8 hours if you want to work, because I'm still in my 90-day probation period, so I don't get time off yet, which is another thing I'm not used to having is time off or paid time off. She's like, or you can take a mental health day. I'll take a mental health day, I guess. I'll go fishing. So that's what I did. I was like, I won't be here tomorrow. I'm going fishing. And me and my boy, he's, on off school for summer, packed up the boat, shot down to the lake and spent the day fishing. I just thought it was funny. But in general, like my wife has a guy that works underneath her, or quite a few people that work underneath her, that they take like a day off a week, it seems like. It seems like there's always someone out, and my wife's always having to pick up the slack. And it's insane. Like my wife has the tradesman mentality in a corporate job. She doesn't take any time off. She puts in crazy hours. The only time she'll take time off is like if we're going out of town for something. She usually takes her laptop with her and keeps up on top of stuff. And it's just crazy how this job is so easy. You're literally at home, most of us. I think there are a bunch of people that do work in the office, but you're literally at home in your PJs, refrigerator's right there, your coffee maker, you got your TV going. I listen to podcasts all day. I'm able to go out in the garage and work out for an hour or two, like in between tasks. So because I work with banks, a lot of them are on the East Coast, so a lot of my work I gotta wait for them to get in and start doing their stuff so I can do my stuff. So I have like a lot of free time in between where I'll do some chores around the house and stuff like that. So it's just funny, and I noticed this when so I went from working construction where you're like on different job sites all the time. You go from this job site to that job site. It's hot outside. You're on the roof all day, or at least my job, I was on the roof a lot doing stuff. And then, it's just unpredictable, like I said, working in the rain and working in the heat, and it's windy and it's snow, or not snow, we live in Southern California, but it's windy and it's, rainy and cold and it's hot and all these things. And then I got into building off-road cars, which I was in a shop all day. I went to the same place every day, and I had a kid that worked for me underneath me, and he was like, man, hemming and hawing about the heat, or he would whine about crap. He was maybe 10 or 15 years younger than me at the time. No, not that young, maybe 10 years younger than me, 8 years younger than me. And I'm like, dude, I used to have to wake up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, get the truck packed up, go to the shop or go to the yard, pack up the truck, get our materials, and then go to a job site that was an hour from here and work, till 3:30 in the afternoon in this heat. I'm so happy that I have to go to the same destination every day. I know how long it takes me to get from here to here. We're inside the shop where we're not in direct sunlight all day. Yeah, it's hot. We got fans going, and it really starts to put things in perspective, like it always could be worse, right? And now that I'm working this job, I will admit, like the first week or two when I was learning all this stuff on how to do it, because I'm so technology illiterate, like I had no idea how to do anything on a computer. So it was pretty exhausting and pretty draining for like the first week, like absorbing all this new information and like learning all these new things I've never learned before. But now that I know it, it's so easy. And even on the days where I'm dead, exhausted, tired, my boy's been playing All-Stars and our games run till midnight, and I get up at 5 in the morning usually, just because I'm old, and that's what happens when you get old. You start getting up early. Even when I'm dead tired and I don't want to be at my desk staring at my computer doing my work, I'm like, I could be outside in the garage right now in this heat and humidity and stuff, welding and fabricating right now. It always could be a lot worse. But, and another thing that I've noticed, or I'm starting to see now that I've been doing this job for a little while, is my passion for wanting to do fab work again is coming back. When I first got into off-road building, I was so passionate about it, and every day I couldn't wait to get to work to design a new whatever I was working on at the time, be creative and build things. And then after a while, it turned into a job, and you're just kind of don't want to be there. And I'm noticing now that I've been doing this job all the time, that like things that I want to do for myself, like there's a bunch of stuff I've been wanting to do to my boat that I just keep putting off because I don't want to work with my hands. But I took on a couple of side projects. I still got customers calling me. This lady called me. She had some pieces of granite left over from getting some granite countertops made, and she wanted me to build her a little like little tables, next to her couch and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I'll do them. And now I'm excited to actually do stuff like that. I had a buddy break a part that goes to his tractor, and he was like, hey, can you cut these tabs off and fix them? I'm like, yeah, I can do them. So now I'm starting to see the passion. I learned all this, I have all this knowledge of welding and fabricating and all these tools and the skill set that I don't want to just go to waste, but I don't want to do it for a living anymore, So I'm starting, oh, look at my cat. How funny. So I'm starting to get that passion back and that drive back to want to build things. There's a million things around the house my wife always wanted me to do, and I just would put it off because I work all day with my hands, and the last thing I want to do on my time off was work with my hands more. So now I can start getting those things, stuff in the yard, going outside for a day and the heat and getting burned and, all the stuff I hated doesn't seem so bad because that's only one day out of the week as opposed to every day of my life. So yeah, I just wanted a little update on my my corporate job now, and just how different it is going from trades, and like I said, the culture shock of going from trades to the corporate world. It's pretty interesting. It's definitely not for me, but like I said, the job's super easy, and I'm at home in my PJs working next to my beautiful wife all day, and kids are home, so we can look after the kids and hang out together. So it's pretty cool, I guess. I'm gonna stick with it until something else better comes up. Maybe I do eventually find I don't know, rehab or a church organization or something where I could get more involved in with the whole, this opiate epidemic. It's not getting any better, it doesn't sound like. That's really what I would like to do, is help out more with, try to save some kids' lives that were lost just like me and got sucked into that whole, hellscape of drug addiction. Okay, well, I'm gonna leave it here.